In the early 20th century, airships were seen as the future of transportation. They were large, luxurious, and could travel long distances without refueling. Countries around the world invested heavily in airship technology, and many airlines were founded to operate airship passenger services. Today we'll talk about the rise and fall of airship development. To understand the rise, peak, and eventual decline of airship development in the early 20th century, let's explore the history of airships, their design, and why they fascinated many nations. In the 1920s, countries like the United States, Great Britain, France, Italy, and notably Germany were deeply interested in airship technology, especially after World War I. Germany was also a leader in airship development. Germany, encouraged by Kaiser Wilhelm II, saw airships as powerful weapons for reconnaissance and bombing during the war. The German Zeppelins. It's true that Germany recognized airships' potential even before World War I. They set records for endurance, carried cargo and passengers, and showed promise for military use. The Zeppelin Company built some of the most successful airships of the era, including the Graf Zeppelin and the Hindenburg. These airships were capable of crossing the Atlantic Ocean, and they offered a level of comfort and luxury that was unmatched by any other form of transportation at the time. The United States, Great Britain, and France also explored airship technology through their aviation departments. While observation balloons and blimps were common, true airships offered more versatile applications. Initially, the focus was on civil uses like tourism and mail transport. Airships didn't require traditional airports, making them attractive for these purposes. One great aspect of airships was their ability to set intercontinental distance records. Great Britain, Germany, and the United States flew them across continents, covering North and South America, Europe, North Africa, and even parts of Africa and the Mediterranean. After World War I, the US and other nations used airships from defeated Germany. The military also found value in European airships for observation, reconnaissance, and training. Airship technology, with its endurance, reach, and practicality for international mail, research, personnel transport, industrial equipment shipping, and burgeoning tourism, was simpler and more practical than early fixed-wing aircraft. Fixed-wing planes hadn't yet advanced enough in the first 15 years of the 20th century to handle these functions globally in a commercially viable way. Let's explore the fascinating history of German airships with a special focus on the famous Zeppelin airframes, especially the Hindenburg, which played a big role in this era, though sadly making its end. Hugo Eckener was a key figure in German airship design. He worked with Ferdinand von Zeppelin's original ideas. Von Zeppelin created the first rigid airship in 1900, called LZ-1, which successfully crossed the Atlantic, though commercial air travel was still in its early stages. Between 1910 and 1914, airships carried lots of passengers, often to places like Brazil. The peak of German airship activity was from 1914 to 1932, a time of many flight experiments, long trips, and the beginning of passenger services, mostly using Graf Zeppelin airships. The last stage of Zeppelin design was the Hindenburg series, from 1932 to 1937. Hugo Eckener wanted to push airship design to new limits, focusing on size, comfort, luxury, and even air mail services with the Hindenburg. The name Hindenburg was for a flagship line, different from the first airship in the Hindenburg class. The L-129 Hindenburg, built in 1932, was 237 meters long and 41.2 meters round. It was made of duralumin and had gas bags made of special latex material, holding either hydrogen or helium. A big innovation was the Blaugas fuel used in LZ Zeppelin engines. While earlier Zeppelins used hydrogen, they switched to helium after the British R-101 airship disaster in 1930. Inside, passenger cabins were designed by Fritz August Breuhaus, known for his work on ships and naval interiors. Hindenburg initially had 10 Maybach engines, but only 4 were in use at the time of the crash. German Graf Zeppelins were known for their long, thin, cigar-shaped bodies, and they could carry up to 97 passengers and 29 crew members. The Hindenburg was named after President Paul von Hindenburg, and its construction started in 1931 but finished in 1932. Safety concerns led to a preference for helium over hydrogen. Smoking was strictly forbidden except in designated areas. Hindenburg was a huge airship capable of reaching 129 miles per hour and flying at an altitude of 550 meters. Managing such a large airship during turns, especially in bad weather, was tricky. It needed to be anchored to the ground or assisted by ground crew during emergencies. In March 1936, Hindenburg made its first test flight with 87 passengers and crew on board. It was operated by DZR Deutscher Zeppelin Reederei GmbH, linked to the Nazi Party's aviation authority. More test flights followed before Hindenburg was ready for international passenger service. However, political issues, including interference from the Reichstag and Dr. Josef Goebbels, complicated matters. Hindenburg set transcontinental records, but tragically met its end in an accident just 14 months after its first flight, marking the end of the airship era. Hindenburg's last flight, May 3rd to 6th, 1937. Captain Ernst Lehmann had been in charge of Hindenburg since its early days, but there were disagreements between him and Hugo Echner. The Nazis wanted Hindenburg to make many political flights around Germany, which Echner refused due to the dangers of bad weather. Lehmann, however, wanted to do these flights to please the Nazis. There was an incident during takeoff that damaged Hindenburg's tail fin, which Echner had warned about. On May 14, 1937, with Captain Max Pruss in command, Hindenburg left Friedrichshafen. The journey went mostly fine until it reached the eastern coast of the United States. The weather was bad, with strong winds when Hindenburg entered New Jersey. Max Pruss had to wait until the weather improved before trying to dock at Lakehurst Naval Air Station. As Hindenburg got closer, the tricky wind conditions continued. Pruss got clearance to dock, but he decided to make a tight turn toward the mooring point, which was riskier. On board, people heard cracking noises, but they didn't know what caused them. Hindenburg had ropes controlling its fins, and some of these likely broke during the sharp turn. A small fire started at the bottom of the fin as Hindenburg descended to 250 feet. Crew members tried to put it out with fire extinguishers, but it got worse quickly. Captain Pruss, when he found out, moved Hindenburg to an emergency spot where ground crew could use mooring ropes. Unfortunately, it was too late. The fire spread fast and burned the hydrogen gas bags inside. The fire started, and in just 30 seconds, Hindenburg crashed to the ground, completely on fire. Out of 36 passengers and 61 crew members, 13 passengers and 22 crew members died, making a total of 35 onboard deaths plus one ground crew member, for a total of 36 casualties. Hindenburg, like other Graf Zeppelin and Hindenburg airships, couldn't get helium because it was expensive to make and store. People still debate what caused the tragedy. Some think it was sabotage, while others say it may have been static electricity or damage from the broken ropes that caused a spark and ignited the hydrogen. The damage to Hindenburg was so bad that it was hard to find out exactly what caused the fire. In late 1937, the Reichsluftministerium started taking apart all remaining airships, and by 1940 they scrapped L-130 Graf Zeppelin II. L-130 didn't fly again after the Deutschlandfahrt in 1936 until they scrapped it. Also, it's very interesting to know that the Maybach engines were used in German tanks during World War II.